Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. The Nintendo Switch doesn't get a lot of love on this channel. I generally make videos about the PlayStation and Xbox platforms, but for the record, I think the Switch is a fantastic console, and Nintendo have claimed the hybrid, handheld and home gaming corner of the market and made it their own. I mean, Nintendo are the only company doing this. You can't play your PS5 on the train. I rarely play my Switch, and the reason for that is that technically I find it underwhelming now that we're into 2021. Some games look pretty rough on there, and whilst gameplay is the most important factor, I struggle to enjoy something when the frame rate is bad. Why would I buy a third-party game for the Switch when I can play that exact same title on the PS5 or Xbox Series X in 60 frames per second? Again, I love the Switch. Breath of the Wild is one of my favourite video games of all time, but even that looks and feels a little dated now, in my opinion of course. So, Nintendo, when are you going to give us a new, more powerful version of the Switch? Well, hopefully later this year. There are lots of rumours flying around right now about a new version of Nintendo's popular console. I've been reading many different articles on this over the last few days, and I have lots to tell you. In this video, I'll reference an article at Tom's Guide because I feel that it sums everything up well. I'll leave the link to it in the description so you can check it out for yourselves. I won't read the entire article, I'll just pick out the important parts. The article begins by saying, it's looking very likely that the Nintendo Switch Pro will release sometime this year. What have been years of rumours have turned into sourced reports. Now we're looking at a potential Nintendo Switch Pro capable of 4K graphics and a slick OLED display. With the recent release of the PS5 and Xbox Series X, the Nintendo Switch Pro will be more in line with the next-gen graphics, but given the COVID-19 pandemic, there might be supply shortages as well. According to Bloomberg, the Nintendo Switch Pro will use Nvidia's deep learning super sampling AI technology to upscale gameplay to 4K. The system will also use Samsung OLED displays, giving the handheld greatly improved contrast and colour depth. With Nintendo of America president Doug Bowser, and yes, I promise his name is Doug Bowser, I'm not messing with you guys, stating that the Nintendo Switch is only at the midpoint of its life cycle, it makes sense that now is the time for Nintendo to roll out a premium version of its flagship console as opposed to replacing it with a dedicated Switch 2. Then the article moves on to the Switch Pro's potential release date. It says, just a few months ago the Nintendo Switch Pro was nothing more than a rumour. Today we are seeing more and more industry experts backing the possibility of the updated Nintendo Switch finally coming to life this year. Recently, multiple analysts were interviewed by GameIndustry.biz where they shared their visions for 2021. Most of the talk was concerning the Nintendo Switch Pro. Dr. Serkan Toto of Kantan Games previously foresaw the famous Switch Lite, and this year he provided us with a prediction that is just as exciting. He said, I predict a beefed up 4K device is coming during Nintendo's next financial year. Pierce Harding roles of Ampere analyst built on Dr. Toto's thoughts by supporting the likelihood of a 2021 Switch Pro release, and he says, last year I was unconvinced there would be a new flagship model Switch in 2020, but it makes more commercial sense to release an updated version in 2021. The original Nintendo Switch was released on March the 3rd, 2017. With 2021 marking the Switch's 4-year anniversary, it's entirely possible that we will all see an upgraded console by the end of this year. So I do think that we will see the Switch this year, guys, but how much will it cost? The article goes on to say, for obvious reasons, there's no official confirmation of how much the Nintendo Switch Pro might go for. However, due to its upgraded hardware and improved performance, we can expect the premium version of the Switch to cost more than both the base model and the Lite. According to analyst Matthew Canterman of Bloomberg Intelligence, he believes the Switch Pro will be at least $100 more expensive than the current model. $350 will increase the value proposition of the device, but I still think Nintendo can drive strong demand even at $400, is what Matthew Canterman had to say on this. It's not just Canterman. In an interview with GameIndustry.biz, game analyst Dr. Sirkin Toto suggests that the Switch Pro will cost around $400. But what about the specs? Will the Switch Pro be a significant leap forward in terms of power? The article explores this and it says, sources seem to offer different reports of what sort of specs we can expect to see in the Switch Pro. The majority of them appear to agree that we're likely to see support for 4K resolutions in docked mode, as well as a better battery life. According to a notable data miner who goes by the Twitter handle @SkiresM, details found in a recent firmware update for the Nintendo Switch seems to indicate that the Pro model will feature the same processor as the 2019 Switch base model and the Lite, the Tegra X1 Plus chipset. The leak uncovered a project titled Aula, which indicates that the chipset will offer higher performances by being pushed to higher clock-in speeds supported by an improved cooling system. SkiresM also hinted that the console will receive a substantial visual upgrade with an OLED display and 4K capabilities in docked mode, powered by a Realtek chip. How legitimate the above information remains questionable, as are a lot of Nintendo Switch Pro rumours, but a report from Bloomberg citing insider information also has the Switch Pro tipped to offer a 4K output in some form of docked mode. Likely when docked, the Switch Pro will have some form of co-processor to upmix a 1080p video feed into a 4K output. Some rumours seem to suggest that the Switch Pro might have some more controversial features too. In a now deleted 4chan post, a user alleged that according to a former employee of Nintendo, the Switch Pro will feature significant hardware improvements, including a custom Nvidia Tegra Xavier processor, 64GB SSD storage and 4K support. The obvious downside here is that the post also suggested that the new console will be a TV-only system, aimed primarily at users who are in the market for a more traditional console experience. Considering that some Switch gamers spend the majority of their time in handheld mode, this seems somewhat unlikely. So, very interesting stuff indeed, guys. A new Switch with an OLED screen, 4K resolution and a longer battery life will be most welcome. Anyway, I'll keep an eye out for any Switch Pro news, or Switch 2, or whatever they decide to call it. But for now, I'm off to dust off my unhappy Switch and give it some attention. As always, thank you for watching. Please hit this video up with a like. Please subscribe to the channel and look out for more content coming your way very soon. Take care.